Thompson heaving one down the sideline, and he's got Cass Allen over the top. Big side, down the sideline. Touchdown. His signature move and his signature performance. Allen did ball one more time. 58 yards this time.
You're listening to the Bruin Bible. This is your host, Will Decker, bringing you UCLA football content all throughout the year for LA Football Network.
Up, LAFB fans, you are listening to the Bruin Bible right now, but we want to bring to you our sponsor for the show. It's Bet Online. Our partners at Bet Online continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon finals. I know our guy Madman will be all over that. The big tennis fan of the bunch. Major League Baseball, Dodgers in the midst of a big-time season, highest payroll in the league, 3 MVPs in the lineup. Can they figure it out? The latest fighting news, a huge MMA fight coming up this weekend for the UFC, and even next season's early NFL futures. I know you guys will be hammering the Rams and Chargers overs on the futures for next season. Head to our website to use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LAFB to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. What is up, and welcome to a brand new edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host, with my main man, the madman, Jamal Madni in the house. We got a very special guest in the house. DTR is on the field, but his mother is also DTR. Dr. Thompson-Robinson in the building joining us for a podcast. She is so active on UCLA Twitter when it comes to football. It just seems like a natural person we'd want to have on. Doctor, how are you doing on this fine Wednesday with college football coming very soon?
Trying to keep it all together. So, yeah, it's it's about to get real busy here. Like, I looked at the calendar and was like, oh, shoot, Dorian, do I need to bring you some food next weekend? So, yeah, we're trying to get ready for game day and stuff.
Yeah, are you going to be attending all the games this year, going to the home and away, or just the home games and away?
The plan is to go to all of the games. So we'll see, how far the pennies stretch, especially with the last game at Cal Thanksgiving weekend. So, yeah.
Well, wonderful. Well, we want to get into your son's background, but we also want to know yourself, DTR, Melva Thompson-Robinson in the house for this. Melva, where are you originally from around the country? And did football enter your life even maybe before Dorian was playing on the gridiron?
So I was born in Columbia, South Carolina. Dorian and I actually were both born there. And my dad was in the Army. So, early on in life, we, moved around the country and things like that. I did most of my growing up in Northern Ohio in a small town called Lakeside Marblehead, which is, for those of you that are like big roller coaster fans, it's about 20 minutes from Cedar Point in Sandusky, Ohio. So, like when I say that, people are like, oh, I'm like, yeah, up, but I live above that in the lake. So in a small peninsula in the lake. Did my undergrad at the University of Michigan. So my friends played football with Jim Harbaugh. And then I did my master's at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio, not to be confused with Ohio State. And then I moved out here to Las Vegas and worked for about 3.5 years at what used to be the Nevada test site, where they blow up the nuclear bombs, or used to blow up the nuclear bombs. And then when they stopped doing that, they offered packages for layoffs. So I took that and went to the University of South Carolina, got my doctorate there. And that's when Dorian was born. Then we moved to Tallahassee, Florida. I was on faculty at Florida A&M before coming out here to Las Vegas. So that's kind of like, the background of where I've been. You can't grow up in Ohio and not, know about football and, everything like that. So my brother played high school football, and, we were at the games and stuff like that. University of Michigan, obviously, at the football games and things like that. I was a kinesiology major, so I had a lot of classes with, football, basketball players and things like that. So it's kind of been ingrained. We also have family members who have played collegiately and professionally. So, yeah.
Doctor, what an incredible journey and story. When did you first realize that you had a football prodigy on your hands in Dorian? And did that change your approach to parenting at all as a result? And would love to hear some of those stories.
So people always laugh at me. I really didn't take his football stuff seriously until he went to the semifinals of the Elite 11. And then it was like, oh, okay, these are like some of the top quarterbacks in the country. And he was doing, as well, if not better than some of them in the semifinals and then in the finals. He started playing football about 7 or 8 years old. Wasn't, like some kids, like the little bobbleheads, playing at 4 and 5 years old. He wasn't that, because we didn't want to rush him in football, because of, the risk of injury and things like that. But people used to talk about his coaches always used to be, especially once he got it like into middle school, they were like, dude, do not throw the football at us. Like, run it back to us, because they were like, you throw it too hard. So yeah, it just kind of has come along. He was a All-American. Oh, I think I might be fading out.
Oh, we can hear you. It's a little glitchy,
okay,
but we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so he was an All-American as a freshman, and people were like, oh, he should have offers. He should do, he didn't even have a private quarterback coach until like that spring after the All-American game. And I was, talking with some people and found somebody that, we had a personal connection with, but he had a quarterback coach. He got a quarterback coach, but his quarterback coach was in Chandler, Arizona. So, so we didn't do like the normal, oh, we've got to go, every weekend kind of thing. Cause I'm like, I got a full-time job. He has responsibilities here, because Bishop Gorman at that time was, very stringent about missing practice and missing games and things like that. So, and so like I said, it was really like, what was that, going into his senior year, that in summer of 2017, where I'm like, wow. And, and he had a whole bunch of offers and stuff like that. But, you're like, oh yeah, he's got offers. He's, getting attention. But when you go to somewhere like the Elite 11, where like some of the top quarterbacks are, and you can see where he is in comparison, then it's like, oh, this is a little serious now.
We have something.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So,
And, Dorian has been progressing at a rate that we haven't even seen. It's crazy to hear that he didn't even have a quarterback coach until after his freshman year in college, because a lot of it, you just look at it and just goes, man, that's such natural ability out there, what he's able to do with the football. But, man, just the fact that he's gotten the quarterback coach, we've seen the progressions in recent years. We're really excited about that. But I want to go back to high school, Melva. We know about Bishop Gorman, the high school football program. It's, nationally recognized. It's got players in the NFL, a lot of 5-star recruits coming out of there. From a family perspective, Melva, break down what made Bishop Gorman the right choice for you guys to send Dorian to.
So we went to, I'll be honest, I was very anti-private school. I've always done public school. My mother, my uncles, my aunts, my grandmother all taught public school. So it was, I was very anti private school. And we went to open house and we talked to Tony Sanchez, who was the coach at the time at Bishop Gorman and then moved on to UNLV. And he said to me, 96% of or 95, 97, whatever it was, of our students that graduate go on to pursue a 4-year degree.
Wow.
And at that time, the local public schools were graduating around 70, 75%. Like, we're not even talking about going on to school. We're talking about just graduating from high school. And I was like, and I'll be honest, one of my first questions in my mind was like, well, then, like if it's 96%, let's say, then like, what's the other 4%? Like, that's 1 or 2 students, 3 students, like, what did they do, kind of thing. But then, but hearing that, it was like, oh, well, that's, the goal is, you go to high school and then you go on to college. Again, not thinking that, oh, he's going D1 playing, quarterback, things like that. It was just, oh, going to college, and being prepared. And it really wasn't like he didn't get his first offer until, spring of his freshman year. And then, more started coming in as he went into his sophomore year. And I think, the first like real Power 5 was Missouri out of the SEC. And so then it's like, oh, the SEC is calling. Like, that's that's different. That's interesting. Like, okay, and we just, we just weren't, at least I wasn't and I think early on Dorian wasn't, it wasn't about, oh, you're going to school to play college football, and I mean, and I can tell you, like, a friend of mine, our sons were in the same high school class, and she was like, if my son doesn't leave out of here without a D1 scholarship, we failed. And I'm like, oh, okay. That wasn't what I was thinking, but okay. So yeah, it's,
that's amazing.
Along those lines.
And Doc, so sort of fast forward now to Dorian's senior year, the offers are flowing in. We have a real D1 star prospect on our hands. What ultimately led to the decision of why UCLA was the right place for Dorian to continue in his journey? And what were some of those conversations like between family and mother and son?
Honestly, we really didn't have a lot of those conversations. It was, like, my thing was I wanted him to make an informed decision. And, through the course of everything, it really came down to Michigan and UCLA. And, of course, I was like, oh, yes, Michigan, yes, yes, yes. And then I had to step back a minute and be like, you know what? This is about him. This is about his decision and what he wants to do. Like, I don't need him calling me every day, Mom, I don't like it here. Mom, I want to come home. Mom, but da 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 da. So, and he really, honestly loved the University of Michigan. He was like, if those coaches could have been at UCLA, it would have been it wouldn't have been close, but Ann Arbor is a lot different than Las Vegas, I have to realize that, but, we have sun here over 300 days a year. Can't say that about Ann Arbor. Right. So I think some of it came down to that. I think some of it he was thinking, in terms of because we always talk to him, me and some of my friends always talk to him about this is a 40-year decision.
Mm.
So you're going to want to go somewhere where you're going to have alumni who can connect you with different places. You're going to want to go somewhere where when they say, well, where did you go to school? You said UCLA. People are like, oh, like when I say I went to Michigan, people are like, oh, it's like a different tone. So, so that's kind of where it kind of came down to, and he made an informed decision based on everything that was out there. What I will tell you is I actually got a call before it was announced Coach Mora was fired, and from one of my cousins who was like, Mora's about to be fired, you guys need to open up your recruiting. We were only scheduled for one official visit. Okay. And because, Bishop Gorman, we could not visit until December at that time because we had, we were going through the playoffs, state championship, etc. So I went to Dorian. I said, look, your cousin just called. He said, Moore's about to be fired. Do you want to do another visit? He really thinks you should consider another visit. And Dorian looked at me and he said, Mom, I'm going to UCLA for more than just football. I said, okay, can't argue with that. And, so he stayed, like whatever he said, it was like 100,000%, committed. Like he's been very true to that. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. And by the way, I did not know you were a University of Michigan grad. On top of this, my grandpa went there. So go Blue. That is my other team outside of UCLA when it comes to football. So, Melva, if you ever come to the game and I see you, I'll be showing you the Michigan score in the stands while I watch UCLA play as well. So go Blue, go Bruins as well.
That'll be fun now with the realignment, Melva, that, the UCLA and Michigan in the same conference. There's going to be some fun games, I'm sure.
Right. I am so bummed that Dorian will be out of eligibility by that time. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, So it is what it is. Hopefully he'll be on to bigger and better things.
We know he will be. And, it's going to be both with the degree and the football career. But I also want to take it back a little bit to his Bishop Gorman days again, because he was a quarterback, likely probably growing all the way up. He goes to Bishop Gorman. They have another very talented quarterback, a recruit at that time by the name of Tate Martell. He has to kind of, swallow his pride, for a big part of it and play the wide receiver position up until his senior year. As a mother, you probably were there for all of it, just seeing that up close and personal. What was that like for him to finally get that start at quarterback that senior year and you be able to watch that play for one of the best programs high school wise within the entire country?
It was, it was a long time coming. It really was. And I'm trying to think. They played DeMatha out of Maryland. And it was ESPN game and things like that. And, for him to be player of the game that night, it was, it was kind of like everything was worth the wait. All the work, behind the scenes, because, Dorian would go, he would go to practice, he's running quarterback with the twos, he's receiver with the ones, special teams, he's the holder. There were times they were putting him in on defense, so he's running all through practice. And then we pick him up and he's like, okay, Mom, like I gotta go throw. So I need, like me and his sister, we would have the iPads out and we would be recording him so he could send it off to his quarterback coach and stuff like that. So it was, there was a lot of stuff that went in behind, getting him to that point. And to see it be successful, of course, they ended up losing 2 games that season, one against Mater Dei, who Gorman plays this Friday, and then the other one to Miami Central. And, that was hard because, they hadn't lost in, I don't know, it was like 55 games, 56 games. So it was hard. But, to see them get their state championship rings and things like that, it all made it worthwhile. And, he walked out of Bishop Gorman 1 year as a quarterback, as a record-setting quarterback at Bishop Gorman, and will leave UCLA as a record-setting quarterback. So,
no question about it. And Doc, that sort of brings us to the here and now. Obviously, a year ahead for Dorian, where if he repeats last year's performance, he's going to break all of the offensive record, passing yards, passing touchdowns, total offense. The last time we saw him on the field, maybe the signature performance of any UCLA player in the 21st century, with that performance against SC, the hurdle, the autographs. I mean, it was iconic. It was showtime. What went into the decision ultimately for him to want to come back for a fifth year at UCLA? What were sort of the pros and cons? How was that decision, and how did you feel ultimately with the outcome there?
Again, like his college decision, it was his decision.
Yes.
I made, but again, it was an informed decision as well. So, yes, he spent time talking to Chip and back and forth. Chip and I even had a conversation. Dorian and I had conversations about finishing his degree and, what he needed to do that. There were, we had a conversation with the agent, and, if Dorian had signed, if he had decided to leave, he would have signed with a one agent. And it was just, kind of where he felt. But I think, like in the back of his mind, he felt like there were games, there were times where he left stuff on the field, and he wanted to come back and get that. He wanted, I think one of the things too that he said to me was, Mom, when I left high school, I was rushing. Like, I wanted to come in to UCLA and I wanted to start, and I wanted, even to the point, like the first couple of days of fall camp his freshman year, he was like, Mom, if they don't start me, I'm transferring. I was like, if you don't shut the hell up, like, you haven't even been there a week. Like, give it a time, And so I think, in kind of watching, I rushed it a little bit coming into college. I need to take my time, with going to the pros, because you only get one shot. And so, and I think it's helped to, like he was in the same high school class as like Trevor Lawrence. So he knows Trevor, he's known him for a long time. And I think, just with different ones, having different conversations, his UCLA teammates, his high school teammates that have gone on to the pros, it was kind of like, like I'm, if I have to be honest with myself, like I'm just a little bit short. And so like, I want to come back and, do some things. One of the knocks that he gets is that he's not big, and so people are like, we want him weighing over 200 pounds consistently. So, he was like, if I come back, I can work on the weight and play with it and not just be putting on weight just to be putting on weight. And, he's like, I want to be successful when I go to the pros. So I said, okay, look, it's not coming out of my pockets to pay the tuition. So I'm like, okay, there was, some things we had to reshuffle around, but, we were able to get them, he's back in school. He'll finish his degree in December and then off to the league. Fantastic. Well, bowl game and then off to the league.
Open him and off to the league, man. We're so excited to watch that play out. And I think this is just the last question I personally have for you. We're all proud of what we can watch with Dorian on the field. But from a mother's perspective, what are the characteristics that you're most proud of in your son as he enters his final year of college football eligibility?
I would say, like, right now, a lot of it has been him interacting with and being that teammate, being that leader, stepping up and saying, this is what we're going to do and this is what we need to do. And, like, I've told them for a long time, like, you came from a winning high school program. You know what it takes to win. And I think it finally started to click last year. Like, it was clicking here and there, but not consistently. And, we've always told them, my family, friends, myself, like, you've got to take care of, like, even though he always gets, the praise or the blame for a game, win or lose, it's not just him on the field. It is his teammates and stuff. And so, that's what's been huge this summer with doing stuff with his teammates and things like that, really trying to give back to them, to embrace everybody, and like we're a big family and things like that. So there's really been that kind of effort. And I think that's been huge, and just to watch him grow and to grow into himself and be a little bit more confident and mature, has been big for me.
That's amazing. Well, Melva, we are so thrilled to have you on here. This was such a fun exercise. I think Madman can fully agree with me on this. We do not deserve mothers in this world. They are the greatest humans on earth. They'll do anything for their children. Doctor, thank you so much for coming on. We got the real DTR on this episode.
Capital DTR. Yes.
We hope to see you this year. We're going to be at a lot of the games. We hope to see you. We're going to be tailgating around. We'll have to shoot some information over to you after this is done. But just know this was a big thrill for us, and we had an awesome experience being able to talk to you.
No problem. No problem. I know you guys wanted to get Dorian on in the past, and, he gets bombarded with so much that it's not always easy for him, to break away and to do, every single interview that he gets asked to do. So I'm glad, I could be here to represent him and, talk a little bit about our journey and stuff like that and where we're going.
Well, you represented tenfold, so we really appreciate it. Bruin Bible, we are officially out. Melva Thompson-Robinson, the guest today, was phenomenal.